We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you the Tidurium Hanger Christmas Special. We hope you enjoy. Christmas in the 80s. And it's filled with excitement, fun, and wonder. But what is that wonder? It's wondering what's in the Christmas presents underneath that tree. Let's start with 1980. Of course, Star Wars was big in 1980 with the release of Empire Strikes Back and brought all new toys, but it also brought re-releases of all the old Star Wars toys. You could get all of them up to that point for the most part, and that could have been under the tree. It would have been exciting, and Star Wars dominated 1980. The Rubik's Cube was also introduced in 1980 as a puzzle game that dominated so many people's minds, and excitement turned into competitions these days, and it still goes strong even in 2020 as the Rubik's Cube was a 1980s phenomenon. 1980 also brought us the radio phono, which populated so many kids' bedrooms because it could play these records. It would play all of these mini records for all the different stories that you wanted to hear, all the music you wanted to hear before the iPhone, before the iPad, before anybody had a PlayStation 5. We had this. 1981, underneath that Christmas tree, maybe you had an Atari 2600 pop up. See, Atari 2600 was actually released in 1977, but gained steam over the years, and what made it even more popular as time went by were the titles. By 1981, Atari 2600 had so many titles that you could bring the arcade home with you. Although the graphics were only a quarter as good as the actual arcade title, it was still fun to own a bit of that in your home and play it. I got mine in 1981 because the games I wanted were out. That was my first overnight binge of gaming. Clash of the Titans was a very popular 1981 movie, and it brought along a toy line. Everybody wanted to reenact all of the scenes in this show, in this movie, and it was an enjoyable movie. It's a classic. It's still renowned today. People still seek out these figures, and I don't know why we haven't seen more. There was another Clash of the Titans movie made, but it's nowhere near as good as the original. And of course, 1981 carried on more Star Wars, more Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars continued to dominate year after year back in the early 80s. 1982. In 1982, we got Lincoln Logs. Lincoln Logs are a lot of fun for kids, especially back in the day. For some reason, log cabins were all the rage back in the 80s. So much fun to actually build your own house, build your own environment. This could have worked with any toy line that was out there. Lincoln Logs were pretty cool, but they're still available today. I just don't see that my kids are as into them as we were. For whatever reason, back in 1982, kids wanted a glowworm under the tree. This is for the little kids, but I have to admit, I was pretty little, and I actually had a glowworm. I don't know why, but I squeezed the glowworm and the face lit up. Thought it was the coolest thing ever. By today's standards, it might be a little bit lame. Underneath the tree in 1982, we could have had G.I. Joe, reintroduced in a 3 3/4 inch size with a lot of articulation. This revamped the brand and made these figures highly sought after, highly desirable, and highly wanted for Christmas. Many say that Hasbro copied Kenner with the 3 3/4 inch success of Star Wars, but they didn't just copy them, they improved the articulation. They made these things so much better. Little did we know they'd improve the articulation even more in the coming years. Don't forget that 1982 brought us Mattel's giant hit, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. You know, it's quite interesting seeing 1982 getting relived in 2020 with the Origins line. The vast majority of the figures on here can be found on your toy aisle today, and that is just exciting. Hopefully, there's some Origins figures under the tree today to bring the same excitement we got back in 1982. 1983. 1983 ushered in the Cabbage Patch Kids. And the thing about these were they were so hard to find, they were so highly sought after, that these figures actually had repros or KOs. Moms were knocking these off for their kids. They could go to the stores and buy the parts and make their own Cabbage Patch Kids because you could not find these anywhere. But you were a special kid if you had that stamp, the Xavier Roberts, all over your figure. You knew that was true and blue, and your parents went the extra mile. 1983 also brought us more He-Man figures, a bigger selection, but also brought us Blackstar. John Blackstar was, a lot of people thought, a knockoff of He-Man, but maybe it did it differently. It did a similar type thing, but it was there. Although some could argue the figures are even better than He-Man figures. They definitely stand more like a regular figure. They could not compete against Mattel's massive success with He-Man. Good luck, Galoob. 1983 also brought us GoBots. This transforming robot gimmick was a whole lot of fun. It captured the minds and hearts of kids everywhere, hoping to get these figures under your tree in 1983. Tonka had big plans for this toy line that didn't see competition coming just a year later that would blow them out of the water. 1983 brought us the Dukes of Hazzard toys. These Bo and Luke Duke and all of the crazy stuff going on. You get everything from toys to another one of these mini record players. Just the good old boys having some good old country fun. This was 1983. You could also say that 1983 was the year that the Atari 5200 bombed. For whatever reason, it had better graphics. It was hard to hook up, a gigantic system, and too close to the other 2600. Why did parents need to buy a new game system? They already have a system, they already got games. Why upgrade? At the time, it didn't make sense. 1984 brought along Transformers. This is the year of Transformers. 1984 changed everything, and even though the cartoon aired very late in the year, it was still at the top of every kid's wish list for Christmas. Little did they know that this was the first nail in the GoBots coffin, because Transformers just dominated the transforming robot space for years to come. In 1984, Mattel wheeled out their Wheeled Warriors. If you're anything like me, you kind of missed the whole boat on the Wheeled Warrior thing, but it's still kind of cool, and it's sort of along the lines of Mask in a way. Many kids had wishes for these under their tree. One of my favorite things from 1984 was the Imperial Shuttle. I didn't even know it was made. It wasn't on my wish list under the tree because I had the mini bot version. I had the mini one. I didn't know they made this massive, amazing piece of wonderfulness until many years later. So I thank you, 1984. 1984 also brought us this wonderful Toy Toter toy box made of R2-D2 in a way. I have to admit that this was relegated to a laundry hamper in my house, but it was still the best laundry hamper I've seen ever. 1985 brought us Teddy Ruxpin from the Worlds of Wonder. This is a creepy talking bear that lots of kids thought actually came to life. Wow, you could have a new best friend for only, what was it, $100 back in the day? That's a lot of money for a Teddy Ruxpin. That's a lot of money for a talking bear. Maybe I'm off on the price, but I never had one of these. We couldn't afford this. The thing was too expensive for us, but I always thought it was interesting, and that was on my wish list under the tree one year. 1985 brought us Kenner Mask. This is one of the most interesting toy lines ever created. Scaled down in a time of 3.75 domination, this toy line still fascinates collectors and people today. Surprised there's nothing new under the tree for 2020 when it comes to Mask. Maybe 2021. 1985 also brought us Verbot. This is made by Tommy. It's a remote controlled voice activated robot with a wireless remote, and this thing could be controlled. Looks a lot like something that Nintendo was working on back in the day. 1986. 1986 was a huge year, and lots of kids wanted the Nintendo Entertainment System underneath their tree. The reason for this is because it saved the gaming industry. Well, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but this was back in the day when game consoles include 2 controllers and a pack-in game. I know I wanted the game system. It took me a couple more years till I got it, but was it better than your Atari? You bet it was. 1986 also brought us the Remco Karate Kid action figures. Of course, it launched the line. They made many more in many different series down the road, but the Karate Kid action features all had about the same action features. It was kind of a fun line. I more or less passed on it myself. It was never under the tree for me, but maybe it should have been. Also 1986 was the Chuck Norris Karate Kid Commandos. I had just recently made a video of this on my Retro Wednesday talking about this toy line in depth. It's a lot of fun. Maybe you should check that one out. My Pet Monster was my very, very bestest friend. My Pet Monster should have been under the tree for me. I did get one of these eventually. I wanted one. I was infatuated with this show, this monster, for all of about 3 months. That's all it took. And that's all I had. I was no longer interested 4 months later. Inhumanoids, Inhumanoids. This toy line was a request for under the tree for a lot of people. I did never request this under my tree, but it showed up under my tree. Lo and behold, I actually enjoyed them. Thought they were kind of interesting and spooky, but they worked with pretty much every one of your toy lines if you were creative enough and had enough fun with it. These days, these are some of the more sought after toys. The Real Ghostbusters. Now, there was a cartoon. These toys were based on that cartoon. I might talk more about it in the future. Hey, guess what? These are on the toy aisles today. What? You can go get these at Walmart right now? Well, let's go. Wait. Walmart's closed right now. You gotta go tomorrow. Centurions. Centurions were definitely under the tree in 1986. I gotta tell you, I had so much fun with these back in the day. The excitement, the getting to realize I actually am gonna get my hands on them was so exciting for a kid under the tree. My wonder was wondering if I'll get these, and I got them. I got a few. I didn't get them all. Maybe I wish I would have had them all. And I definitely wish I would have kept them all, as expensive as they are now. 1987 brought us Captain Power. Yes, the soldiers of the future. 1987 was a fun year. We also got to see a bunch of different stuff for this toy line that was in the show, but well, we in the US didn't see these. Maybe they weren't under our tree in our country. Some of these things were under the tree in other countries. Brave Star. Brave Star was one of those toy lines that might have been requested in 1987 to be under the tree. Under the tree. This toy line is very interesting because it does sort of match the show very well. A couple of oddball things about the toy line: that 3030 should not be almost twice the size of Brave Star, but it is. And at the other end of the spectrum, Tex Hex, not as scary as I think he should be. 1987 also brought us Visionaries. Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Lights. This is not actually what these figures and staffs look exactly like. They changed a lot from the promo images, but this is a good representation of the figures that you would have asked for if you were into the Visionaries. They could have been under your tree in 1987, but I missed out on these entirely. Although they looked cool, the price point was a bit elusive for someone like myself. 1987 also brought us Silverhawks. Silverhawks, slightly metal, slightly real, very expensive. At the time, they were a higher price point. At this time, They make absolutely no sense, but the vac metallized plating on these figures make them very desirable, so the good guys are worth 10 times more than the bad guys, simply because they have mastered the art of the lost vac metallized plating. We'll probably never see these reissued because of the cost. 1988 brought us the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have to admit, I did not ask for these to be under my Christmas tree. I had to chase them down, the 1988 versions, in 1989 to get them myself. I missed that boat, and more kids were happy on Christmas because they asked for these figures. 1988 also brought us Cops and Crooks. Hasbro made an entirely new toy line. It reinvented something from nowhere and brought us these action figures, which were cool based off of the G.I. Joe designs. They were all different, completely different molds made from a design of the G.I. Joe, but massively larger. They were about 50% bigger than an actual G.I. Joe figure, and more kids wanted these in 1988 than I even could comprehend. The only thing I was asking for that year was this helicopter, because this is one of the coolest helicopters ever created, ever designed. It's so impractical, and I think that's what makes it so awesome. 1989 brings us the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis was the first real competition that we ever saw against the NES, the Nintendo that dominated the game systems. But for me, I felt that it blew Nintendo away, but I only wish they had more games. That was always the problem when it comes to a game system. The Sega Genesis still holds a very special place in my heart. Of course, Nintendo did not back down in 1989. They doubled down with a portable version of their Nintendo Entertainment System in the Game Boy in a monochromatic type of color scheme of the black and white only, or a green and white if that's how you want to go. The Game Boy absolutely dominated the market, and it was one of those game systems that everybody wanted under the tree in 1989. A portable game system that worked pretty much everywhere. Those 4 AA batteries lasted for 20 hours. Well, nowadays you can get that kind of performance off of a couple of AAAs if you bought a newer model, but back then that was mind-blowing. It was astonishing, and this game system really took Nintendo into the stratosphere as a handheld provider. 1989 also brought us the Michael Keaton Batman and the toys from Toy Biz that really brought Michael Keaton Batman to life. These were semi-okay. They weren't the greatest, but I gotta tell you, I could not live without them underneath my tree. Had to have me that Batmobile, even though I knew everything was wrong with that Batmobile. They did not have a canopy or a hood or anything that really worked right, but it still was something you had to have because it was out, and Michael Keaton Batman rocks. I don't care what anyone says. So I hope you enjoyed this Tidarium Hanger Christmas special. Hopefully it took you down some memory lanes. I want to hear, what did I miss that you actually love to get for Christmas? Maybe you wanted it for Christmas, never got it. Maybe you didn't even ask for it, but you got it and it's one of your favorites. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Tidarium Hanger out. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming, already in progress. And that's why DACA Toys Chronos and Omnigonic Spinout would have been the best. If only those companies could have made a second release, they would have been the best figures and the best companies. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Tidarium Hanger out.